Good evening. My name's Bradley Turmel. You might know that. It's written sort of down here or here-ish. I don't know. I think the screen's mirrored on my end. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about engine placement. Here, I'm going to write this down so you can take this in your note. Engine placement and drive configuration. So we'll do a little ampersand. I learned how to draw those. I'm very proud of myself. And what did I say? Drive configuration? Drive configuration. Brilliant. How could you say no to that? Lovely. All right. You know what we're seeing. It's in the title. While I'm erasing this, I'm going to introduce you to CARS1001, the new YouTube series where we talk about cars because people don't seem to understand them. So today we're going to start with something that is constantly advertised. You might see it on the television when you're watching your Modern Families and whatnot. People still watch Modern Family, right? I don't know. Anyways, we're going to start with engine placement. So, very simple. We're going to start with the most common engine placement and drive configuration, which is known as, we're going to do it on this board, front engine and front drive. How can you say no? So front engine means the engine is in the front of the car. Wow, you did it. So we're going to draw a car real quick, your basic car. Wow, I am an artiste. This is a Fiat Panda. So what we've got is, you might notice the car. This is where the people go. This is where the engine goes. Two wheels, front, rear, wheel, rear, wheel. Here's how it works. You've got the engine. I'm going to draw like a pictogram of an engine. This is adorable. So you got the engine. That's a box. Here's the air filter. And then you've got your wheels. This wheel is being driven by that engine. Now it does so in a simplistic manner, which means the engine is mounted transversely. Transversely means sideways. Longitudinally means longitudinally. Let's draw the top of a car real quick. So, top of a car. Beautiful car. Here are the wheels. Transverse means the engine is mounted like that. Longitudinal means the engine is mounted like that. The main differences we'll come into later. But for now, what's important is that front engine, front drive works like this. I'll draw it on this board because it's free. Normally, the vast majority of front engine, front drive cars, especially new ones like our Fiat Panda right here, work like this. They take the engine, look, I'll draw it in 3D. It's going to be great. So here is a lovely 4-cylinder, less than 2-liter engine. Now, as this is represented by the cube, here are the spark plugs. What we're going to do is we are going to add the transmission. You're wondering what the hell's a transmission? That's another episode. So, transmission goes down here. Bottom of the engine is connected to the side of the engine like so. How could you say no? Here is wheel hole, and there's another wheel hole that you do not see. Then you've got a drive shaft coming out that way, drive shaft coming out that way, wheel, wheel, and of course, these are not drive shafts, they are half shafts. They're called half shafts because they're half, I know, I don't know who names this shit. It's not me, obviously. So, this is all obviously hooked up to steering and drive. The reason they do this is because it is cheap and also very safe because there's a lot of understeer. Now, understeer we will come into later, but let's first explain the problems with this and why you do not see front engine, front wheel drive advertised, or at least it's rare. And you might have seen front engine advertised on past commercials. Now, the advantages, here I'm going to draw a sports car. It's going to be great. So, we got your front end, you're going like that, and you go like bam, 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 bam. So this is a sporting car. We're going to put wheels on it like that. This is a Nissan 300 ZX Turbo with the pop-up headlights. Here's the antenna. Now, it's a spoiler now. Beauty. Adds 10 horsepower. So, what happens when you hit the gas? Now we're looking at physics and why front-wheel drive is not desirable if you want to do anything related to speed. So, hit the gas. Now, anybody here who's a fan of physics will know that the car will go forward, because that makes logical sense. Now, what happens when the car goes forward? The car is going to lean back, like so, taking weight off the front wheels and putting it on the rear wheels. Now, a front-wheel drive car, this is bad. That takes pressure off your front wheels. Your front wheels will then begin to lift off the ground. As you add more power, they lift more. Now, with more lift comes less grip. They will start to spin like crazy, make a heck of a lot of noise, and generally annoy the neighbors. Now, how we can, you know what, I'll just erase this, because this diagram of a sports car is going to come in useful later. How do we improve this? Now, there are 3 total, or at least most common, engine configurations, as well as 4 drive configurations. Again, I'm following the most common. There are unusual things. This isn't everything. This is the basics. So we're going to start with our lovely best friend, front engine, rear drive, common on most sports cars. So we're going to draw a sports car. It's going to go, whoa, bam, you know, convertible, whoa. Go like that, bam, wheel, wheel. It's a Mazda MX-5. Here's the headlights. So you have, again, a 4-cylinder, which will go in the front. Now that's cute. Now, rather than being just directly attached to the engine, like the diagram I drew earlier on that screen, this is connected to the rear wheels. You're wondering, Bradley, how does that work? Well, the transmission is not placed below the engine. It is placed behind the engine. So, transmission behind the engine, it's all hooked up. The drawing is not accurate, but that does mean that within the car, here's you, and you're happy because you're driving a sports car, and you have a really flowy hair in the wind, right? The girls love that. So, you're sitting here, you know, you got your steering wheel, and you have your gear stick. Now, oftentimes on front engine, rear drive cars, the gear stick is actually directly connected to the transmission. Another thing that's great for sports, as demonstrated in the faded out graph that you cannot see, there would have to be extenders to bring that all the way to the engine, but we don't have to worry about that, so I'll just get rid of it. I am on a tangent. But there is then a drive shaft bringing you directly here with a differential. We'll get into differentials later. This is desirable if we bring back to this ramp, because when you hit the gas, your power, rather than going to the front wheel, let me get my chalk, it goes to the rear wheel. Then the rear wheel is also the wheel that's being pushed into the ground. So you're getting more grip, more power. As you accelerate, you just get more grip and more power. What's not to love? A lot. So we're going to get rid of this diagram because it's possibly one of the ugliest things created on this planet. Yes, I'm including Alita Battle Angel in that list. So we're going to keep going. We're going to get rid of this diagram because if I need it again, it's just an old Nissan. I can draw that again. So we are going to start with, we're going to keep going on along the engine placements. Now we're going to hit mid-engine. Now that's the most sporty in theory because it puts the engine in the middle of the car. I will show it here. Now, middle does not mean that, so let's draw a Lamborghini first. Bam, you know, here's the windshield and it goes like, whoa, very sporty. So you got the end, spoiler, and then wheel. Mid-engine does not mean that the engine is here. That would be ridiculous. Where would you sit? What mid-engine actually means is the engine is in between the two axles. There are various versions of mid-engine. We'll cover them. Let's cover the most common version of mid-engine, at least right now, the sporty version. Now this means the engine is normally right here. Now normally it's quite a large engine. The Alfa Romeo 4C does have a 4-cylinder mid-engine. So not all mid-engines are big. Many of them are though. Now, mid-engine, a little simpler to hook up. Transmission, drive shaft, bada bing, bada boom. Can you see the drawing? I don't care. So, you're sitting here, you're happy because you're driving your sports car. Whoa, I just bought a Lamborghini using my Bitcoin money. Now, this is great. This is lovely. So, push down on the gas. The weight of the engine and the weight of the car is all pushing down. However, that means there's less weight pushing down on the front wheels, meaning your front wheels go up more. That's bad if you want to turn, because if you want to turn, you can't turn because your wheels are being lifted off the ground. They're not being totally lifted off the ground. This is more of a problem with the mirror. You know what? I'm going to make this a mirror right now. Headlights. So, problem with the mirror, you can't turn. How do you fix the problem with that? So, driving along, right, and you're like, oh no, I got to make a turn. So what you do is you hit the brakes. Now, what the brakes do is they do the opposite of the gas. They shift the weight. It jams the weight down on the front wheel and lifts it off the rear. It obviously doesn't lift as much as it could potentially off the wheel because engine, weight. That's putting down on your front wheels. Your front wheels now have more grip than ever before to steer. So you start steering like crazy out in the direction. I'll draw a diagram here. So what you've got is a turn. Here's you in your car. That's car. You hit your brakes and you start to turn. Your front wheels want to go here, which is where you want them to go. However, your rear wheels, because they're being lifted off the ground and have no grip, as well as having all of the momentum in the world from the rearward placement of the engine, means that your engine is going to keep going this way unless you're a good driver, which means that your car will, imagine this cell phone is your car. You're just going to go turn and spin, and then you hit this tree and you die. You do not want to die unless you're a university student. If you are a university student, you cannot afford a Lamborghini. It's best to get hit by traffic, then they pay your tuition. So, now we are going to cover the less common versions of mid-engine, which, for the purpose of this explanation, will all be vans. Now, who doesn't love vans? First, we are going to draw a Ford Econoline. The first Econoline had a mid-engine, which means, no, a lot of the Econolines had mid-engines because the front of the van was just a box. Here's where you sat. Right here, here is the headlight, and here's the steering wheel. Now, the wheels were like here. No room for the engine. You can't see me, but there is still no room for that engine. Where does it go? It actually goes here. Now they call this, because you can see the big box in the middle of the van, they call that a doghouse because oftentimes on those big American vans, it was a V8 engine. Now a V8 engine is not a small engine. Again, engine configurations is a future episode. That means that your mid-engine is now being connected to your wheels from there. It may as well be in the front, however, because it's in between the axles, it's mid-engined. That's great. You can find that in the Toyota Previa as well. Now, not all flat-fronted vans are mid-engine, because you might be thinking to yourself, what about Volkswagen? Now, Volkswagen are interesting. They love to use rear engines. So we're going to draw a Volkswagen Transporter or Type 2 or the bus. And the bus worked in a similar way to the whatever. In fact, we're going to draw a Beetle over here for the purposes of our explanation. Now, wheel, floor. Beautiful. However, the Volkswagen Transporter was not a mid-engine vehicle. You getting this? Was not a mid-engine vehicle. It was a rear-engine vehicle, which meant that the engine sat on top of or behind the rear axle. Again, simple to plumb, nice and short. The reason that the Transporter was mid-engine is because the Bug was also mid-engined, air-cooled. The reason it was air-cooled and mid-engine, or rear-engine, sorry, is because of basic aerodynamics. I am not smart enough to explain. I'll get my physics guy some other episode and we can explain engines. That'll be in the engine configuration episode, sure. So, Volkswagen are like, we need a transport van for post-World War II Germany. So they're like, okay, let's just take the Beetle and put a box on it. So that's what they did. This is just a Beetle with a box. It is rear engine, rear drive. I have covered now front engine, mid-engined, rear engine, front drive, and rear drive. There is one small issue though. You might notice I have not drawn a single pickup truck. That's because pickup trucks are all-wheel drive. They are four-wheel drive That's why I said there are 4 drive configurations: front wheel, rear wheel, all wheel, and 4 wheel. You might be thinking to yourself, what the hell's the difference between all and 4 wheel? That's what we're about to explain. Let us take the eraser and let's get rid of these words which haven't been relevant for like 5 minutes now. So we're just going to get rid of the words and we will draw all wheel drive, which is found in a lot of cars. Subarus have this, versus 4 wheel drive, which is found in trucks. Now, trucks work like this. We're going to draw a nice truck. So this is a Ford Bronco. Now, the Ford Bronco is famous for the OJ chase. This is not what we're talking about. However, that's what this is attempting to represent. So you got you there, and you're driving, and you're running away from the police because you just, the glove didn't fit. It's a thing. Anyways, these are front engine, big engine in the front. However, not rear drive. These are 4-wheel drive, which means that there is a transmission. Behind the transmission is a transfer case. The transfer cases are normally much smaller. The job of a transfer case is to take the power and split it 50-50 to the front wheel and the rear wheels. That transfer case will split that power 50-50 when it's on, no matter what. Now, you turn it on using a lever in the car that's normally near the gear stick. These are levers and not steering wheels. This is all good. These then hit the wheels, which are either locked diffs or regular differentials. Differentials are not in this episode, except they will be for the all-wheel drive explanation. Over here, we're going to draw a nice Subaru bug-eye, which means we got to go like so. The big eyes, beauty. And then this is a 4-door, of course. So we are going to draw the doors with the handles. Now, Subarus and other all-wheel drive road cars work like this. Front engine, Subarus, of course, use a flat 4 boxer engine, much like the Volkswagens. Again, not talking about engine configurations in this episode, but we could be. So this is how it works. Power, gearbox, but no transfer case. Instead, you get yourself a differential. Now, I know we said we wouldn't talk about differentials, but too bad. A differential's job is not a transfer case. A differential does not split power 50-50. The most basic differential will always send power to the least resistant wheel, meaning that if there were 2 wheels spinning at equal length with a differential on a table and you grabbed one of the wheel, the other wheel would continue to spin with power. And the wheel you grabbed would lose most, if not all, power. Awful for off-roading. There's a reason you use limited slip. Not talking about limited slip. Now, a differential, that's job is to then send the powers to the diffs in these wheels. The difference here being that this is much better suited for road use because it does not split the power 50-50. Oftentimes, especially nowadays, there's a computer regulating that, meaning that you'll never scrape your tires on the road. And of course, 4-wheel drive does not have such advanced computerized systems. However, they're better for off-road. 4-wheel drive also often have a high and low range option. Now, of course, high range is just driving along the highway, and low range is for rock crawling. Brilliant. You have just been crash course through every single, or at least every single popular drive configuration and engine placement. Aren't you happy that you just wasted however many minutes of your life? In fact, let's check this right now. Aren't you happy that you just wasted 20 minutes of your life being explained engine configurations by a guy in a whiteboard? You know, it's 10:30 p.m. right now. I should go to bed. But instead, I found a lecture hall, a classroom. Here, let me pick up this camera. I found a classroom. It was empty. No one's yelled at me yet for presenting in here. So, we're in this, okay? This is the camera. I'm going to put in the camera back. Let's hope it's aligned. Probably isn't. But the advantage of this means that because nobody has yelled at me, I can do this however many times I want, meaning that this is the beginning of CARS1001 and later CARS2001. CARS1001 is aimed for people who do not own a vehicle but have ridden in them and cannot drive. It's for people who don't understand front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all the things I'm explaining, basic facts about how cars work and their physics and what makes them different. This is important if you're looking to purchase a vehicle, especially used, if you're a university student or college student, for example, or even if you're just in high school and you need to learn more about cars, this is a great place to start. 2001 will be for people who have just bought a car, don't know anything about it, how to do oil changes, how to change a tire, how to change the battery, how to charge the battery, how to do a jump start, how to swap out a tail light. Everything that you should be able to know if you own a vehicle. Nothing complicated. We're not going to swap an LS into a Civic, although that would be fun, maybe fourth year. So, you have just been crash coursed through CARS. So, I thank you for joining our CARS1001 class. This is the first class. There will be 12 weeks. Your assignments are due Wednesday.